Picture this. A millennial manager, proud of their 5-year tenure, is startled when their brilliant Gen Z hire, barely a year in, announces they're leaving for a new opportunity. The manager blinks. "At your age, I barely dared to update my resume." The Gen Z replies with a shrug, "Oh, it's normal for us to job hop, sir." This isn't just a scene, it's a daily reality in today's multi-generational workplaces. Is Gen Z truly the job-hopping generation, lacking loyalty, or do they simply have a different work ethic shaped by a different world? Welcome to GENSHIFT, where we're decoding the future of work. Today, is it the job-hopping generation, Gen Z versus millennials' work ethic? If you've ever felt bewildered by a younger or older colleague's career choices, hit like. If you're ready to bridge the generational gap in the office, definitely subscribe. Job loyalty and career progression. Climb the ladder vs. leap the opportunities. The core debate begins with a fundamental question. What does loyalty at work even mean? For decades, the career path was seen as a ladder. You started on the bottom rung, worked hard, and slowly climbed your way up within the same company. But for younger generations, that ladder looks rickety, and sometimes leaping to another ladder entirely seems to make more sense. This isn't impatience. It's a fundamental shift in the psychological contract, the unwritten expectations between an employee and an employer. For millennials, that contract was breached. Entering the workforce during or just after the 2008 Great Recession, they faced a brutal reality. Youth unemployment soared, and many were forced into lower-paying jobs or roles outside their field just to get a foothold. This economic trauma taught them a dual lesson. On one hand, it instilled a powerful desire for job security. On the other hand, it painfully demonstrated that corporate loyalty is often a one-way street. This gave rise to what a 2011 PwC report termed loyalty light. It's not disloyalty, but a pragmatic, conditional form of commitment. Millennials will remain dedicated, but they always keep an eye open for the next opportunity. Understanding their security ultimately lies in their own hands. Gen Z, in contrast, enters the working world with a different assumption entirely. Instability is the default. They witnessed the struggles of millennials and grew up in a world defined by the gig economy and rapid technological change. For them, frequent job changes aren't a sign of flightiness. They are a deliberate strategy for career acceleration and risk management. Data from a 2025 survey shows 13% of Gen Z employees plan to quit in the next year to pursue entrepreneurship. They see changing jobs as a primary driver of career development. Their loyalty isn't to a single organization, but to their own career trajectory and personal skill development. Each hop is a chance for a higher salary, new skills, and greater impact. They are building a career portfolio, a mosaic of diverse experiences, rather than a linear path at one company. Let's look at the data. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in January 2024, the median tenure for workers aged 25 to 34, mostly millennials, was just 2.7 years. That drops to only 1.4 years for those aged 20 to 24, representing Gen Z. Yet, here's a fascinating paradox. An Admiral Group study found that 75% of Gen Z employees are actively searching for secure, long-term work with an aspirational average tenure of 7 years. What does this tell us? Their job hopping isn't a rejection of commitment, but a strategic search for an organization that will finally give them a reason to stay. Let's return to our opening scenario. The millennial manager sees an employee leaving and thinks of lost loyalty. But the Gen Z employee doesn't see themselves as breaking a promise. They see themselves as making a strategic move in their personal development plan. For the manager, a career is a marriage. For the younger employee, it's more like a series of strategic partnerships. The implication for companies, higher turnover rates, but also the potential for a more agile and skilled workforce. The challenge isn't to stop the hopping, but to create an environment where your most talented people want to make their next leap within your company. Work-life balance and overtime. Live to work versus work to live. The differences don't stop at tenure. They extend deep into the very fabric of the workday. The debate over work-life balance isn't new, but each generation approaches it with a different level of urgency and expectation. Millennials, shaped by a post-recession hustle culture, were often more willing to put in extra hours and answer emails after work. For many, it was a necessary survival tactic in a hyper-competitive job market. They embraced the idea that to get ahead, you had to be always on. But years later, the generation is suffering from a collective hustle culture hangover. Burnout is rampant, and a profound reevaluation of the true cost of being constantly connected is underway. They live to work, and now they're wondering if it was worth it. Gen Z enters the stage with a different script. They witnessed the burnout of their predecessors and have decided that mental health and personal boundaries are non-negotiable. This has given rise to the phenomenon of quiet quitting. Contrary to what the name implies, it doesn't mean leaving a job. It means a conscious refusal to do more than what is required in one's job description. It's a form of boundary setting when employees feel their efforts are unrecognized or their well-being is ignored. My job is what I do, not who I am. The data backs this up. According to Gallup, quiet quitters now make up at least 50% of the US workforce, a trend driven largely by Gen Z and younger millennials. A CNBC survey found a staggering 47% of Gen Z workers admit they are just coasting at work. This isn't laziness. It's a rational response. When you feel stressed and undervalued, you conserve your energy. The root of this issue is often financial. The 2025 Deloitte survey found the cost of living is the top concern for both generations, with nearly half feeling financially insecure, a sharp increase from the previous year. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, the stress of a demanding job is magnified. Imagine another office scenario. An urgent work request goes out at 7 p.m. The millennial colleague sighs and reopens their laptop. It's what's expected. But the Gen Z colleague politely responds, stating they'll handle it in the morning as they have a scheduled self-care routine. The silence in the group chat is almost audible. To the millennial, it might look like a lack of commitment. To Gen Z, it's necessary self-preservation. This shift is forcing companies to confront an uncomfortable truth. Wellness programs and meditation apps are nice, but they can't fix a culture of overwork and underpay. Younger generations are demanding a fundamental change in the contract itself, one that respects them as whole people, not just workers. We've tackled job hopping and work-life balance, but where do you stand on the great generational divide in the workplace? Are you Team Millennial or Team Gen Z when it comes to work ethic? Drop a for a stable career or A for a dynamic job hop in the comments below and tell us your work philosophy. Purpose and values, mission-driven versus stability-driven. Beyond salary and balance, a third element is reshaping career decisions: purpose. Younger generations are increasingly evaluating opportunities not just on what they can earn, but on what they can contribute to. Millennials pioneered this conversation. Impacted by economic crises, they sought stability, but also craved work that felt meaningful. They are often more pragmatic, looking to find purpose within existing corporate structures. They might lead a corporate social responsibility initiative or seek out employers whose values align with theirs, but often balance that with the practical need for a steady job. Gen Z takes this a step further. For them, values aren't just a preference, they are a filter. They prioritize working for companies whose social and environmental beliefs align with their own, and they are willing to use their veto power. A 2024 Deloitte survey revealed that nearly half of Gen Z professionals would turn down a job offer from a company that doesn't align with their values. They seek immediate impact and meaning, and they hold companies accountable. The 2025 Deloitte survey crystallized this into a powerful concept: the trifecta of money, meaning, and well-being. These three elements aren't separate items, they are tightly interconnected. A high-paying job that destroys your well-being is a bad deal. A meaningful job that can't pay the bills is unsustainable. Younger generations are searching for the sweet spot where all three coexist. The data shows this: roughly 9 in 10 Gen Z, 89%, and Millennial, 92% respondents consider a sense of purpose important to their job satisfaction. Picture an all-hands meeting. The CEO is presenting impressive financial figures. A senior millennial manager might make a note to propose a new sustainability initiative through internal channels. But a Gen Z intern raises their hand and bluntly asks about the company's ethical supply chain. The room goes quiet for a moment. That's the difference in action. Millennials look to influence the system from within. Gen Z challenges the system to be transparent from the outset. This puts immense pressure on companies to not just talk the talk, but to genuinely walk their values. An ethical brand is no longer a nice to have. It's a critical factor in attracting and retaining young talent. Feedback and growth, annual reviews versus constant check-ins. Finally, let's talk about growth. In a world where skills can become obsolete overnight, the opportunity to learn and develop has become a primary driver of engagement. But how the generations expect that growth to happen is worlds apart. So millennials grew up with more formal performance cycles, annual reviews, 360-degree feedback. They learned to wait their turn for feedback and follow structured development plans. Gen Z, digital natives accustomed to the instant feedback loops of social media and online learning, have different expectations. They expect continuous, transparent coaching and frequent opportunities for skill development. Waiting a year to hear how you're doing seems absurdly outdated. They want to know now so they can improve now. The data reveals a significant mentorship gap. A 2025 Deloitte survey found that about half of Gen Z and millennial employees want their managers to actively mentor them, but only about a third report that this is happening. Consider one last scenario. A Gen Z employee proactively asks for a weekly check-in with their manager to discuss progress and areas for development. The millennial manager, used to quarterly reviews, is initially taken aback, but then recognizes the value of real-time coaching. Meanwhile, another Gen Z employee, faced with a new software task, doesn't wait for a formal training session. They immediately look up tutorials on YouTube and teach themselves the skill in an hour. This is the shift from passive to active development. This is forcing leadership styles to change. The manager's role is shifting from a supervisor to a coach. Self-determination theory, a psychological framework, explains this perfectly. It posits that humans thrive when three core psychological needs are met: autonomy, a sense of control; competence, a sense of effectiveness; and relatedness, a sense of connection. Gen Z's demands for flexibility, constant feedback, and purposeful work are not signs of entitlement. They are expressions of these fundamental human needs. Organizations that meet these needs will be the ones that win the war for talent. Conclusion. So, where does that leave us? Between a millennial generation shaped by recession and a Gen Z generation shaped by digital disruption. The job-hopping stereotype for Gen Z isn't about disloyalty. It's about a different definition of loyalty, to themselves, to growth, and to purpose. Millennials, with their quest for stability, often approach work with a different, but no less valid set of priorities. The modern workplace is a fascinating blend of these generational approaches. Understanding these differences allows for mutual learning. Managers can better engage younger talent by offering growth, flexibility, and purpose. Younger employees can learn resilience and strategic thinking from their experienced colleagues. It's about Gen Z bringing the fresh perspective and millennials advising with wisdom. Ultimately, both generations want meaningful work. The future of the workplace isn't about one generation dominating. It's about all generations collaborating, adapting, and finding common ground to build dynamic, effective, and human-centered organizations. What's your biggest workplace pet peeve about another generation? Or what's the best thing you've learned from a colleague from a different generation? Share your thoughts below. And if this episode helped you understand your boss or your new hire a little better, hit like and subscribe. Join GENSHIFT as we continue to decode the future of work.